Greetings my friends, how are you doing? This is Zed from Zed Outdoors and I hope you're having an awesome day. So today I'm with a friend of mine, Kris, who is a professional full-time wooden flute maker here in the United Kingdom. This is a part 2 to a 2-part series where I'm filming with Kris. In part 1 we looked at some of Kris's work, we looked at the overview of the process he goes into making his beautiful flutes, and we also looked at the stunning flute that he made for me as a commission. Now in this part 2, what he's going to be kindly doing is allowing me to film a video where he's going to be teaching you from scratch how to play a wooden flute. And really this is a complete beginner's guide, so it's giving you a few fundamentals to keep you going. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Kris, firstly, I do appreciate you allowing me to record this video. I've commissioned a Native American wooden flute from you. And so in order to help me, and I'm sure it will help many others that are out there, you're going to go through some tips and techniques in order to get started. So the first thing is obviously the setup of the flute itself. What are some things that we should take into consideration?
Right, well it's a ducted flute. So there's two separate chambers within the flute, separated by a wall, and the channel on the top there, that's called the duct. So the playing edge is just there. So you need to make sure the block's in the right position. So the sound hole has to be open, otherwise it won't work properly. So when it's in the right place, you get a nice clear tone like
And
that.
if it's not in the right place, how would it sound then? It's a very clear difference.
There is a difference, yeah, definitely. The block needs to be quite tight, but not too tight. So you don't need to tie the leather as a knot. Just pull it over itself, and that should hold it tight. And if you've never played before, it's always a good idea to start finding the notes from the top of the flute. And when you cover the hole, you use the pad of the finger rather than the tip of the finger, because then you get a nice clear seal on the actual hole. So if you start at the top and work down, finding the notes as you go, and when you're comfortable with the actual note, so it's nice and clear and not squeaky, keep the finger there when you've got it comfortable. Work your way down to the bottom so that you've got the bass note, so it's nice and clear, and then just work up and down and just get used to the flute.
And in terms of posture, is there anything to take into consideration in terms of your posture, your back, etc. when playing?
It's good to keep a straight back if possible, because then you can fill your lungs easily, which is quite important. If you're hunched over, then you can't properly open your chest.
Standing, sitting, does it make a difference also?
Whatever's most comfortable, really. It's easier if you're sitting down to begin with, because it's one less thing to consider, is sitting down.
Yeah, it's more relaxed. And in terms of breathing, okay, I think breathing's a big one. Is there a particular breathing pattern that you're deploying and a certain way that you're breathing?
You basically just fill your lungs and hold your breath and just allow a controlled airstream out. And it is important to remember to breathe in when you finish breathing out as well, because I sometimes forget.
So just to recap, so you're taking a deep breath in as much as you can, and you're just controlling. So is that something you'd be practicing also, as well as obviously the finger movements, the kind of a steady breath out?
Yeah, you get used to it really, and then when you've been doing it for a while, you don't even think about it. You just basically, it's like swimming underwater a little bit, where you're underwater with a lung full, and you just allow it to stream out, and then it sort of helps to control the breathing.
And so, what are some exercises people should be practicing besides the one from the one you've just already shown? Are there any other exercises that one could practice?
Well, there's a technique, I think it's called jazz finger, where you take 2 fingers off at the same time. Which is, that's quite good. There's a technique called ghosting, where you just quickly put the note on and off really quickly. Which is quite nice, quite evocative. Yeah, that's pretty much about all I know.
So, for example, let's say I were to be setting aside 10 minutes a day to practice. What's a good routine to go through on a daily basis to kind of build up a proficiency with playing?
Just practice, really. It's like anything. The more you do something, the better you'll get at it. But just relax and just play the flute, really, and follow your heart. It's probably the best way to learn the flute in particular. But practice is important. The more you play something, the better you'll get. And yeah, just go for it, really.
So the finger techniques should be practicing daily, the breathing, getting a nice consistent breathing. And then with the breathing itself, obviously that can also affect the melody, can't it? So are there a few different breathing techniques in terms of getting a different tone, different melody?
Well, the intensity of the breath makes a difference, because you can play very quietly or you can play quite forcefully as well. But it's something that just comes from just picking it up and playing it, really. I mean, there's loads of footage online of Native American people actually playing the flute, so it's always nice to get an idea of how other people play as well. And it's such an easy instrument to get the hang of. It's just the sort of thing, it tends to teach you how to play the more you play it.
So it's a very organic process in terms of
yeah.
just kind of playing, feeling along, and then working with the breath, the finger movements.
Yeah.
And if people then want to transition onto playing recognised tunes, what's a kind of good road to go down from in order to do that?
Well, there are books that you can buy, but I've found that just through playing, I mean, I play quite a lot at shows and things like that, so I'm quite often just noodling with a flute. And then every now and again, a song that you know will just fall from the end of the flute.
And so any final tips and advice for people in terms of the practice routine? So for example, they've got the flute in their hand, taking all the tips you've taken on board. Is it just a case of kind of daily practice and experimenting around a lot?
It is really, yeah, because this flute really lends itself to improvisation because the flute's actually in tune. So you can't really actually play a bad note, you can only play melody. And it is just a case of just actually playing the flute, really, getting used to it and just improvising and enjoying yourself. And don't try too hard and you should be all right, really.
And just as a final word, any aftercare tips on the flute itself?
Yes. When you finish playing the flute, it's really important to allow the first chamber to dry because you will get condensation that builds up inside there. So always store the flute open if you can. You don't have to, but it's best for the flute, really. It just allows the air to circulate and allows it to dry inside as well. And
would you advise keeping it in a case of some sort, or
in a nice, dry, stable environment? Don't leave them on a windowsill or on a radiator to dry or anything like that. If it comes with a bag, keep it in the bag, just somewhere nice, really. Or you can keep it on a shelf in a pot. As long as it's not in direct sunlight, it should be all right.